Tell us how you started this project. What was the impetus and how did it originate?
Well, it started way back in 2008, 2009. They were having trouble finding qualified operators. So then they started to work with the Department of Labor to form an apprenticeship program. The apprenticeship really opened up the door for us to hire employees that may not have qualified right off the bat with the sort of restrictive job description that we had written without us rolling back the requirements that we wanted within that job.
In central Iowa, it has grown over the intervening decades. At the time of the formation of the Wastewater Reclamation Authority, multiple member communities had their own treatment plants. So there was even at the time a kind of an existing base of skilled operators to recruit from. We were trying to solve a problem that was created by the success of the authority that we're now operating by having taken in all of the wastewater treatment plants. The small plants in the metro area got folded into a larger context, but that also meant that that we had taken candidates for those jobs out of the workforce.
Right. You really had to start from scratch if you wanted to bring in kind of the next wave of operators.
Yeah, recruiting for larger from a workforce with experience with larger plants and Iowa licensure. The next closest plant that would be equivalent is another 2-hour drive away in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
Wow.
And we try not to poach from each other, but anybody coming from a larger metro is going to have licensure outside the state of Iowa and not easily transferred with one-to-one correspondence right into the position.
Right. Well, it makes sense. I'm sure a lot of other member utilities will be able to relate to that. Tell us how this works, this new apprenticeship program, and just give us a sense of how you started it and how you're bringing in your new trainees.
So the apprenticeship's gone through a few renditions. Initially, it was all in-house. We had training classes here on site that we would that the trainer would put on, and we would then work with the employees to get them to their grade 1, grade 2 certifications. It then grew into a correspondence class with Kirkwood Community College out of Cedar Rapids, and then grew again as we got bigger. And our local community college started offering in-person classes. That's at DMAC or Des Moines area community college. That program has really grown and really allowed us to make a good offering for our operators. Mm-hmm. They get to go take college classes at DMAC. They get to know other operators, and they leave with an apprenticeship certificate, which is about 2/3 or half or 2/3 of the way done with an associate's degree for wastewater treatment. And then we send them to get their Class A CDL so that they can work throughout our plant and help land apply. It's kind of grown, got bigger, but the biggest key is our partnership. We'd still be doing it all in house if we didn't have a good partnership with DMAC, and they've been growing along with us.
How would you advise other utilities that were thinking of starting a program like this to begin? Is if you don't have a nearby community college that you can partner with?
Yeah, I'll say that the earliest iteration of this apprenticeship program is probably the hardest way to do it, but it's one that will work anywhere. It's where you staff up your own training and instructions team to do that classroom instruction that Tim mentioned. Yeah. That's the hard way to do it. It's a much more efficient use of appropriate skills and knowledge and educational experience to let a community college be that educational partner. But if that's not an option for an agency in your particular footprint, you can do it, and it does work. The City of Des Moines and the Wastewater Reclamation Authority stood up an apprenticeship program that was U.S. Department of Labor approved with entirely in-house instruction on day one. Would turn that into the successive iterations that have folded in more and better educational partners.
Right.
And I think we have a much more mature program now. This is many years later through the work of many different people. But we have a much better educational component to the apprenticeship program by involving outside instructors hosted at the community college, resourced with community college resources. It brings in a student pool that's larger than just the coworkers. So there's a lot of cross-pollination benefits there.
Talk to me about what reactions you've gotten to this program within the authority from your coworkers, for people who are there prior. What do people on the inside think?
So initially it was a little rough because there was obviously a transition, right? We were changing how we had always done things. But now I think it's received very well because I think our operators realize that when we get a new employee on, they're going to be training them on how it works here, not what's going on in this process. So
Yep.
they have a trust in what's being taught at DMAC, and those students have proven that they have this base or getting that base of knowledge and able to bring it back and apply it to the plant. And we can really focus on how we do it here versus starting at a ground level to bring them up to speed.
It's been a program that has been incredibly helpful at recruiting, retaining, and training and educating a whole new generation of workers over the last decade plus.
Just in general, not just operators, but across the board, bringing in a younger workforce is a challenge. And do you all know? Have you seen that throughout the authority generally in terms of recruiting for other positions in HR or legal or other sectors besides your operators?
For that, it really depends on a variety of factors. One of the downsides of being the largest metro in a relatively small state without a lot of big cities is that we are a natural attractant for talent. So it's a competitive job market in the area, and we try to offer competitive wages. So there's a lot of people moving here, but so there's a lot of activity and a lot of opportunities for a lot of people to go different places. We try to differentiate ourselves in the ways that are unique to us. So trying to make selling points on the interesting parts of our jobs. It's not just the money, but you have to have competitive compensation. That's a key ingredient to even attracting anyone's attention in the first place.
Right.
And then we try to sell the real value of public service as a unique identifier for our jobs, as opposed to just working for some construction company is often who we're competing with in various parts. Some of our jobs we have no trouble recruiting for at all. We're an employer of preference, and we in fact we set a higher bar for recruiting for some of our jobs where we demand X number of years of experience, and we have a full recruiting pool every time we put out those jobs. Other ones are less advantageous, and we have to be creative in how we attract and retain that talent.
That's useful. That's useful to know. I'm curious, if you step back away from the apprenticeship program and just think generally, what are some of the larger challenges at your utility? Just to share your perspective.
Definitely expansion to meet future demand within our city. As Jonathan said, we're growing pretty rapidly. Any emergent pollutants that are coming up, PFAS is a bad word we hear a lot. And of course, tighter regulations.
I'll add just two more things, and one of those is the cost of that expansion to fit capacity demands. Des Moines expected to grow quite a bit over the next 20-30 years, and now that we've concentrated all of the wastewater treatment into one facility for the entire metro, we need to be able to handle that growth. Another big wild card for the future of the wastewater utility is what comes next. We're at the end of our long-term control plan and are approaching satisfaction of our combined sewer overflow obligations. And like a lot of people were wondering what comes next. We will have spent 20 years dealing with combined sewer overflows and getting them under control and eliminating them. And kind of wondering what comes next in the clean water world is as a whole generation of management and engineers and operators have come through this particular time frame. CSO policy was the early 90s, and where many communities are still going to be dealing with it for a decade or two more. But we here in Des Moines are ending about a 20-year compliance deadline in the next year or so. And just wondering what comes next is we're not waiting for the other shoe to drop, but that's adds a lot of uncertainty to what's already a pretty substantial plan just to meet demand from population growth.